What about second breakfast?
Time for second breakfast.
What's up, everybody? Monster from Breakdowns for Breakfast here with another second breakfast. Today will be part 2 of our Loudwire Top 50 NuMetal albums of all time blind react. Just rolls right off the tongue. Now, if you didn't hear the first episode, which why in the hell would you listen to this one before listening to that? But I digress. Basically, Loudwire put out a top 50 NuMetal albums of all time this year, January 2025, and I am blind reacting to them. We went through the first 10. Some of them made sense, some of them didn't, and I'm going to do this at the top of each one of these. This is my prediction for the top 5. Not in any particular order. I'm not saying they're my top 5. I just think these will be the top 5. We have Korn, Follow the Leader, Limp Bizkit, Significant Other, System of a Down, Toxicity, Deftones, White Pony, and Linkin Park, Hybrid Theory. That's not in any particular order, but that's the 5 that I think will be the top 5, or at least in the top 10. So we stopped at 41 with, I got them here because they were starting to come apart, with Kitty Spit was number 41. So here we go. The next 10, starting at number 40 with Korn, Untouchables. Now, this is the first time Korn has appeared on the list, and Untouchables is a pretty interesting album because we'll definitely see Korn at least 2 or 3 more times before this list is over. Untouchables, I think, is where a lot of hardcore Korn fans started to fall off a little bit, because my personal favorite Korn album is, in fact, Follow the Leader. But I think the self-titled, Life is Peachy, Follow the Leader, and then Issues. Even some people were starting to call it at Issues because they were getting more mainstream. The songs were getting a little bit more punchy and catchy. And so I think a lot of the diehard fans were starting to fall off. But they were still at like the height of their popularity. If I'm not mistaken, at the time, Untouchables was one of the most expensive records ever made. It cost millions upon millions of dollars. And you can tell, it sounds great. Here to Stay is still a live staple. There's a couple other good songs off that album as well. Not sure, like right off the top of my head without looking it up. But I like that album. I was still pretty much on board for Issues and Untouchables. After that, I started to kind of lose it a little bit, and especially the albums without Brian Welch head, they were lacking a little bit for me. I actually think their most recent couple albums were really good, and I believe they're in the studio now working on another record. So, yeah, this will not be the last time we hear from Korn. I guarantee it. So, number 39, we've got Dope, Felons, and Revolutionaries. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. Dope is not one that I have really followed. I know I've listened to this record. I think this is the one that has the cover of Spin Me Round, which I think that's probably about as popular as they ever got. But I've never been big into Dope, the band or the drug. And so I don't have much to say about this one. I have listened to it, and I don't mind Edsel Dope's voice. I think it's fine, but I don't love it. So that was a bit of a hurdle for me, and nothing really stuck with me off of this. So if you love Dope, specifically the band, I don't want to hear it if you like the drug. But if you like the band and you like this album, tell me why. Because I know I've heard it. It has not stuck with me. I couldn't tell you much off of it. On my top 50 list, I probably wouldn't even put a Dope album. So that's where we're at on that one. So, okay, number 38, Machine Head's The Burning Red. Now, this is an interesting one because it's funny. Rob Flynn from Machine Head, the lead vocalist, has really gone back and forth on this album because they have always had a little bit of touch of like that groove and bounce to their music. Like Burn My Eyes and their early stuff had that. But the Burning Red is when they started like wearing baggy pants and spiking their hair and they became to like adopt not just the nu metal sound, but the nu metal visual that goes with it. I love this album. This is my favorite Machine Head album. I think it's the favorite of a lot of nu metal fans, but it's an outlier in Machine Head's catalog. They started off more in sort of a, I would say, kind of groove metal Pantera style. They did a little bit of a nu metal thing with the Burning Red, and the album after this, I think, was called Supercharger. And then they went to pretty much just straight heavy metal after that. But the Burning Red has a lot of fun songs. Desire to Fire, Silver. There's some pretty heavy duty stuff lyrically on there as well. But musically, it's got a lot of bounce. It's got a lot of groove. Rob Flynn, there's been some talk about his vocals on that album. I like him. I think he sounds good. He's not much of a rapper, and I hesitate to even say he's rapping on this album, but it sounds more like rap than it does on any other Machine Head album. I'll put it that way. But yeah, The Burning Red, that's a great nu metal record. It definitely deserves to be on the list. Maybe not 38. Honestly, I'd put it a little bit higher, maybe in the like 29, 30 range, but hey, there's a lot of good nu metal albums out there, so we'll see where we get. All right, number 37, Mushroom Head, 13. I don't love Mushroom Head. They're one of those bands, like a lot of, I think a lot of people are this way. They're one of those bands that have songs that I like, but I've never really enjoyed a full album. Mushroom Head is one of those bands that live is great. I've actually, one of my bands opened for them one time, and it was really cool to see that, especially because it was a smaller indoor venue. So to see all 9 of them crammed on stage, a bunch of percussionists and all the costumes and everything, I love all that. Like, I'm into all of that. But there's something about the vocals, and some of the music kind of drags on. See, that's part of the problem I have with Mushroom Head in general. And I'm speaking generally because I cannot tell you a specific song off of 13 without looking it up. Again, I know I've heard it. I know I've listened to it. And, maybe I'm missing out. Maybe Dope and Mushroom Head are the 2 coolest nu metal bands on the planet, and I'm missing out. But I've played with them. They're a lot of fun live. I don't know that I would put a Mushroom Head album on my list. However, with all that being said, my wife, even more so than myself, absolutely loves the song QWERTY. I know it's not off of this album. It's a more recent song. And then since they've gotten the new female vocalist, they did a music video that's very Evil Dead centric, which is a wonderful music video. So, yeah, not the biggest Mushroom Head fan. Sorry if you are. But yeah, moving on. All right, number 36, Orgy, Candy Ass. Now, this is one I can talk about. So, I remember I tried to buy this album when it first came out, which would have been sometime in the probably late 90s. So, I was still a teenager. And I remember taking it to my mom or my dad and being like, we were probably at Borders, and I was like, hey, can I get this CD? And they were like, I don't think so. And I said, well, it doesn't have a parental advisory sticker on it. And their exact words were, the band is called Orgy, and the album is called Candy Ass. It doesn't need a parental advisory sticker. Put it back. So, needless to say, I didn't get it till a little bit later, but this is a really cool album. If, like we talked about last time, bands like Static X and Spineshank, if you like a little digital dusting on top of your nu metal, this is a great album. Stitches is probably my favorite Orgy song. Of course, this has the Blue Monday cover that everybody remembers, but there's a couple other really good tracks on this. This is one of those albums, too, that I hesitate to call it nu metal. It gets lumped into the category because they were on the Family Values tour with Korn and Limp Bizkit. They collaborated with those guys a little, but it's it's not industrial either, so it's kind of hard to say. I mean, I guess you put it in NuMetal because it came out around the same time. They did a lot of shows together with big NuMetal bands, so sure, we'll call it NuMetal. But whatever you want to call it, great album. I would definitely probably have this on my top 50. If you're not familiar with that one, which if you're listening to this, I'm sure you are, very good. Also, Vapor Transmissions, the album right after this, had a lot of good songs too. They might have, I know they're still around. Jay Gordon still puts out new material just recently. But I have kind of fallen off. Those first two albums, though, Candy Ass and Vapor Transmission, are both really, really good. Candy Ass is really good. Stitches, great song. All right, number 35, Coal Chamber by Coal Chamber. Great album. Absolutely great album. I did, on the show, we did the album Chamber Music. Again, sort of like I said on the previous episode with Crazy Town, I didn't pick Chamber Music because I necessarily think it's that much better, but I just thought it had a little bit more of an interesting vibe to talk about. This album rules. I remember getting this. This was one of those albums that I bought, did not know a single song off of it. I looked at the cover. It was weird. I flipped it over. I saw a picture of the band. They looked super weird. They were on Roadrunner Records, and I'm like, this is me. I need to buy this. And I loved it. I thought it was great. I still remember me and my buddy Roger in my room blasting Loco and just headbanging as hard as we possibly could. Loco is one of the best nu metal songs of all time. So this album has to be here. But Sway, Bradley, they do that, The Roof is on Fire. Like, all that is super fun. This is a great album. Absolutely. Yeah. It's got that real rattly low bass, but the drums are kind of clicky and stuff. This is a great album. No complaints. If anything, I mean, might need to be a little higher, honestly. All right, so moving on. Number 34, Drowning Pool, Sinner. Similar to what I just said about Coal Chamber. I don't necessarily, well, I definitely love Coal Chamber. I like them a lot more than I do Drowning Pool. But Drowning Pool Sinner has Bodies. And Bodies is one of the absolute greatest nu metal songs of all time. So you'd have to put this album on there. With that being said, I don't like this album very much. It's been a long time since I've listened to it, but kind of in the same vein as Saliva, they're kind of just a hard rock band that occasionally gets a little bit screamy. I know Tearaway, I think, is on this album as well. That's more of kind of like a rock ballad. This is not a bad album. I'm not saying that, but I just don't think that it's that great. But Bodies is unarguably one of the best nu metal songs ever. So it's one of those kind of a caveat things. Like, you gotta put Bodies on this list. The album that it's on has to be on this list. But I don't know. 34 is a little high for me. Simply because I think that is the most nu metal song. There is some like chuggy stuff on that album. It's been a long time since I listened to it, but yeah, it's got Bodies. It has to be on the list. So moving on, number 33, Stained Dysfunction. This album is gnarly. I remember getting this album pretty much right when it came out. I had heard Let Go on one of them little sampler CDs, and I remember thinking the clean guitar kind of had this like bluesy riff to it, and then Aaron Lewis's vocals were like kind of dark, and you know, that song starts off kind of like mid-tempo and kind of bluesy, but then by the end he's growling and it gets really dark. That is a dark album. You have got to be mentally prepared to go into that album. Most people know Stained by, you know, It's Been a While and Outside, and once they started to get a little bit more butt rock, kind of acoustic based, but this album is rough. I love the song Home. I think that's probably my favorite Stain song, which is on this album. And then obviously you got Mud Shovel. Mud Shovel is another one of those world beaters of a nu metal song. It's ubiquitous with nu metal. I used to cover it in some bands. It always went over well. Even if people didn't know the song super well, they were going to get down because it's just such a good song. I think there's a song on there called Crawl that's really good. There's a song I think it's called A Flat that's really good. Great album. No complaints there. Hell, maybe even crack, into the 20s, maybe. But yeah, good album. Cool with that for sure. Number 32, Soulfly. Their self-titled debut, Soulfly. This is another one. I think this one I had read about in Circus Magazine back before it came out. Max Cavalera. This was his new project after leaving Sepultura. And it was a big departure from, well, I say that, but Sepultura, again, was a little bit more groove metal, quote unquote, and then Soulfly is much more nu metal. And I really like what Max did with this project because lyrically, they do talk about some dark themes, but it is also very uplifting. That whole, just the name itself, Soulfly. I remember getting the Ozfest, I don't remember what year it was, but Soulfly was on it, the CD, sampler, and it was all live tracks. And before they started their first song, Max says to the crowd, "Fighting for God and the Most High, we are Soulfly." And I just thought that was a really cool way to kick off your set, especially at Ozfest. And then they go into some brutal ass chuggy riff and Max's screaming vocals, and it rules. Funny thing about Max's guitar playing, it's very chuggy, and it's to use a term that Meigs from Cold Chamber used to say, caveman riffs. It's a lot of power chords and just a bunch of jun 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 kind of stuff. So he actually does not string the two highest pitched strings, the high E and the high B. He just uses the top four strings because he doesn't need them, But that is a really good album. There's guest appearances by Fred Durst, Benji from Skindred. It's got a lot of good riffs. They get a little bit experimental. It's a long album. I think it's like an hour and 10-15 minutes, which is a bit long for something this aggressive, but it is a really cool album. If you like Max Cavalera and Sepultura or Cavalera Conspiracy or any of those other projects, the first two Soulfly albums are fantastic. I prefer Primitive, which is the album after that, because it is a little tighter and it's got a song with Sean Lennon of all people, which is fun. But yeah, not mad about that. Soulfly definitely needs to be here somewhere. All right, last one for today's episode. Number 31, Sevendust by Sevendust. Great album. I think it's the album most people were introduced to Sevendust on as their debut. You've got songs like Black. You got songs like Bitch. Really good album. Really, really good album. My friend that I just mentioned earlier, Roger, that we used to rock out to Cold Chamber to, this is his favorite band. And I can't blame him. They are a really good band. LeJean Witherspoon's vocals are some of the best in the genre. I do think they get better. I think this is a good album, but it sounds like a debut album. Once they really come into their own on the next album, Home, they really dial in their guitar tone, and Witherspoon's voice just gets even better. But I get why you would go with this one. I hope we see Sevendust again, because, again, this is not a bad album at all, and Sevendust 100% deserves to be on this list. But I'm just thinking of Home and Seasons and Animosity. There's just so many good Sevendust records that I hope they make a second appearance, at least one more appearance, because this is a good album. I get why you put it on here because it's the debut, and Black is probably at least at one point was their most famous song. Probably still is, honestly. But yeah, so okay, not mad about that. Seven Dust deserves to be here. And so that is it for today's. We will do the next 10 on the next episode, whenever that may be. Probably next Thursday, depending on, unless something crazy happens that we just have to talk about. But yeah, so that's the first 20. If you agree, if you disagree, if you agree with me or disagree with me, please let us know. breakdownsbreakfast@gmail.com. Obviously, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, X, all those places. And yeah, until next time, I hope you have a great day.